We're going good.
End the podcast. Done.
Dylan LeClair.
So have you thought of a new name, Pete?
For the show?
Yeah.
The McCormack Experience.
Really?
No, of course not.
I mean,
I don't know. I mean, who says there's a new show? You announcing this to the world?
I can see through it. Come on.
Yeah, like, don't know. I'll give you the background. I don't want to travel anymore. That's it. I think, did I tell you that when I saw you?
You talked about it like a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
You were just like, look, I've said Orange Coin good fucking 10 million different times.
Yeah. How tired and broken are you after this last few days? Bit worn out?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. Like, it's a bit of a switch up from like, it's like usually remote work.
Come to you, Mike.
Oh, we're still talking.
We're live, yeah.
Oh, shit.
Everything's real.
No, I mean, it's a different experience than my usual workflow. So it's good, but yeah.
Imagine you did that every 4 to 6 weeks for 7 years. And in that, you're doing 15 of these.
The podcast 7 years?
It'll be 7 years in November.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
November 23rd, I think, or something. Oh, that's when we released it.
I don't know the actual date.
Yeah, and apart from COVID, it's always been do it in person. So every 4 to 6 weeks, you go away, you're in an Airbnb for 10 days, recording 15 shows, and look, there's a few things. I mean,
You're really brave.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
No, but it's not that. It's like,
I'm just playing around.
yeah, it's just tired, away from the kids, away from home.
Was it cool to bring them this time?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It's cool to bring them. But you just get tired. And also then there's like, we've talked about the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
850 episodes. This will be different because we haven't really covered this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other thing is when you're recording 20 shows in a block to release over 6 weeks, you get some that are timeless, but then you have to like push some to the front. And then you have some shows where you're like, you try not to discuss Trump in 15 episodes because it's, for everyone, it's that current thing. But for us, it's like we don't want everyone. And then, so like, mainly in the end, it's like, fuck this. I don't want to travel.
What percent of your listeners are in the US? What are international?
50, 55%. About 15%
What percent
UK.
is UK? 15?
Yeah, 10. But I mean, it's not, it doesn't matter where the listeners are.
Yeah.
I mean, I expect the listener base in the UK will go up and the US will go down. There'll be a shift. But, and then throw in like the football clubs become a real thing. And, when we were just a little club with some sponsors, it was fine. But
stacking some Bitcoin too.
Dude, we got
congrats.
$4.5 million investment. They've invested based on this going up, and it's a lot of work. We'll get into that. So many reasons to stop. Mainly because I'm cooked, but we could have just kept the show and going remote. But I hate remote interviews.
Yeah,
this is always
it's not as intimate. Yeah,
no, it's not. The quality of the conversation is different. So we've talked about it for a very long time, but
like 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. But like the time is right now. So the idea is we'll build a studio in London, like a proper fucking studio, a badass thing. And then it's like, well, we're not going to get 13 Bitcoiners a month into that studio, and so it can't be a Bitcoin show.
Are you moving to London?
Thinking about it.
Nice.
Yeah. So the studio in London. And look, if you like if you were coming through and you like messaged us and we're like, cool, come in the studio, but we won't get that quality coming through. So, and then also look, I mean, we didn't call it the Bedford Bitcoin Conference. We called it cheatcode.
Yep.
Because the more normal and more it becomes part of the fabric of everything, the better.
Yep.
So we're just going to make a show and there'll be stuff that, I'll speak like you're a listener. There'll be stuff that you'll just ignore because you're like, I don't give a fuck about the chairman of that football club. And there'll be stuff you're listening, you go, oh, I'm going to listen to that because Saylor's on. Or I might listen to that because it's Eric Weinstein.
Yeah. Like the listeners of Joe Rogan don't listen to every MMA.
Exactly. That's the playbook. And like with Rogan, he has so many conversations that are super tangential to Bitcoin, but they just never talk about money. And we'll probably have some similar conversations, but always try and like broach that topic. So it'll still be Bitcoin will be in the show. It's just not the only thing we talk about.
Yeah. The Pete McCormack of comedy. See, somebody said that yesterday. I was like, I wish. Look, I don't listen to any of the MMA shows. And I don't think I listen to any of the comedians. And so, look, it might be a complete flop. It might fail. So be it. But I need to be in the UK now.
How far is Bedford from London?
Oh, it's easy. It's like 40 minutes on the train. But
Nice.
I'm looking at the idea of maybe just getting a apartment down there. And
Nice.
if I can architect a perfect life, I would be in Bedford Saturday through Tuesday. So football Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, and then I'd go down Tuesday evening to London and would make a show Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's like the architecting the life I'd like to lead. But we'll see. We'll give it a go. We've given ourselves like a healthy 3 years.
Nice.
See if it works. And if it doesn't, then I'll be retired and someone else will be doing it.
A few more leagues up in the. I don't even actually know the soccer system.
You're right. A few more leagues up. Yeah, a few
Yeah.
more divisions up. But it's, I mean, we're definitely going to get into that. But no, we haven't got a name. With the working title's always just been the McCormack Show or something not branded. But there's some people who've got some cool names. I really like Dave Smith's part of the problem. And that's a fucking cool name. But I don't know if you've got any good ideas.
Not off the top of my head, but I'll make sure to shoot them by you.
Anyway, how's conference been for you, man?
It's good. Yeah. It's, early mornings, late nights. A lot of awesome conversations. This is number 4 with the company. And so, previous 3 in Miami, Nashville was fun. Just announced, Nashville was great. I think for people internationally, it kind of was a bit of a hassle, right? I know I talked to some people that took 4 flights here.
Oh, really?
The CrowdStrike stuff didn't help either.
Yeah.
Well, we're a direct flight from London, but we came in from Jamaica and hit Atlanta, and Delta was fucked.
Yeah.
We had to Uber from Atlanta here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No rentals, no hotels,
Wow.
nothing.
How much was that Uber?
It's $1,000, which sounds a lot for an Uber, but if we'd been offered 3 flights for $1,000, you'd have taken it.
Yeah.
Because I had the kids. It wasn't
Yeah.
just me.
So not too bad, but yeah, Vegas is gonna be a lot of fun. And Nashville's very intimate, right? Like Broadway, it's just like a special sort of, Broadway is like busy on a random Wednesday in the summer, never mind when there's a, kind of a conference of 20,000 people that all converge upon the city. So
Vegas is going to be fun though.
oh yeah. Different atmosphere, but
Well, I think having it in Vegas is like, it's the next step. It's the next announcement of where Bitcoin's at. You get the president, previous president, potentially future president in. We were just saying to Jameson when we were recording with him, you've essentially got the most famous person in the world.
yeah.
Yeah, to come to a conference, that's a statement.
Yeah.
But going to Vegas and it's maybe 40,000 people, 30,000 people, that's another statement. It's like, F1 wanted Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be a level up. So, I think we just kind of, we continue to gain more and more. I don't want to say credibility in that there's no collective we, but just Bitcoin has gone from this niche thing to something that's in presidential campaigns, and I think a lot of people we don't even have to spend too much time on the politics because, like you said, you've talked about it at last 15 shows. But I think the move, the strategy, kind of forces the other side's hand. And it does that both at a bipartisan level and a nation state level. So it's the first little baby step. Like, was the speech perfect? No, it was like sort of half a Trump rally.
Yeah.
A lot of rambling and whatnot, but the sound bites were there. The Lummis bill was there. These are all like kind of sort of accelerationist sort of steps. So it's pretty cool.
Like inch by inch.
Yeah. It just shifts the Overton window of what's acceptable. What's like, you couldn't have imagined any of this in 2020.
Fuck no.
No. And so 4 years later, right? Like,
in 2017, I was like, I don't even know if this thing will survive.
Yeah, 2017 is like, this is all vapor.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, well, I first was like, why did you say stockpile? But stockpile rather than reserve is like, if we need this, we'll keep it, we'll keep it handy. Stockpile is like, well, we're going to use this because we need, it's like almost in preparation of something to come, in preparation of a war, in preparation of a shortage. That's what a stockpile is.
Or to clear the national debt.
Yeah.
Or hedge against it. All right, we've got 34 trillion of debt, 35 trillion of debt, but we've got 3 trillion of Bitcoin. And you could see a scenario where it kind of starts to swing the other way.
Yeah.
It's the game theory of it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I love it because the game theory is great, but as long as we protect the key principles, these people can't really influence Bitcoin too much.
Yeah. And it's like, look, like I understand politics is I've said this a few times, the underbelly of politics is a gross sort of game. Like no one's denying that. But again, like this is politics, you may not, as I just said, the slop, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And for the longest time, we've been playing it on the defensive, or like we're reactive, like, oh, don't tread on me and just leave me alone. And like when they don't leave you alone, it's like, okay, well, we'll be proactive. We'll go on the offensive.
Well, there's two interesting things in play there. We were with Jack Mallard yesterday, and he said, rightly so. And I think the reason why it's in the political realm now is Trump doesn't need Trump needs Bitcoin. Yeah. Bitcoin doesn't need Trump.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting when you look at the reaction from Kamala Harris's camp, that it appears that they're reaching out allegedly to Bitcoiners to say, hey, we need to talk to you. And I think I saw Pierre tweet something out. Was it a letter by a number of Democrats?
It was like Ro Khanna, or I think that's his name. There was even rumblings of them saying, the strategic reserve is not a bad idea. Know, so it's like, it's just this is how politics work, right? And if it's bipartisan on both sides, there's few things that are both parties can agree on, and if Bitcoin is one of those things, right?
Well, and Elizabeth Warren appears to be getting marginalized in every direction as been the person who's most vocally against it.
Yeah,
I think that is super fucking interesting.
It's ironic, right? She's like the champion of like Occupy Wall Street, sort of. Like that's what she claimed to represent, and now she's just a big bank shill and hates Bitcoin. So
yeah, I wonder how Occupy Wall Street would have worked in the current era with Bitcoin as it is, because they kind of missed the tool. They didn't really have the tool.
Yeah,
they had the campaign and the slogans and the movement, and they just didn't have a tool to say fuck you, we'll exit.
Yeah,
and now Wall Street's in themselves.
Yeah. This is always going to be the path, I think. So
I said two things. I can't remember what the other interesting thing at play was, but fuck it. Game theory is working out. Everything's good for Bitcoin, and okay. Well, listen, I dropped you a DM about a week ago. I constructed a tweet based on two tweets I had in front of me. I had one from Saylor and one from you. I was like, I'll go to Saylor, the source, but I wanted to check yours to see what the consistency is, because it kind of becomes a meme in itself.
Yeah.
You want a lot of people saying this, but I put a tweet together because Rail Bedford now has a sizable Bitcoin reserve for what it is, which is an 8th tier English football club. For context for you, Dylan, most football clubs at our level, they get to the end of the season, they've got no money left. I was like, what do we do next season? They try and scramble together some sponsors, and maybe they've got a chairman will put some money in, and they try and get through the season. Mm-hmm. And we're entering that season with 82 Bitcoin.
Congrats.
About 4.6. Yeah, well, we'd already accumulated 15. We sold some sponsorships in advance as well, based on Bitcoin. But that puts us in this position. It's not the same strategic position as what you're doing and what Saylor's doing, but both, I don't know, I can't remember if you said it, but a couple of you said to me is that we need to go public and do a similar thing. I don't think we can, but it'd be good to work through. Can we start from MicroStrategy?
Yeah.
Because obviously you studied the playbook.
Yeah.
What is the playbook? And can you explain it in a way like normies who are double your age like me can understand?
Well, yeah, sure. Well, it's obvious that August 2020, Saylor comes out, there's a filing, and MicroStrategy is this company, software company worth $1 billion with 10 years of cash on their balance sheet, 500 million. Didn't know what to do. It was COVID era, money printing, trillions of dollars, short-term interest rates were 0%. Everybody needed a solution. Everybody needed to solve a big problem. So they looked around, they evaluated all the options. Bitcoin was that solution. So they bought a lot of Bitcoin, right? And so I think, there's a few kind of tiers to, like, if you think of the playbook or the strategy. The first one is just, you have cash, you make money as a business, you buy some Bitcoin. You don't need to be a public company to do that. You're a private company, you can be an individual. Just buy some Bitcoin. When you think about the public playbook, the public company playbook, this is where I think there's kind of the tiers, right? So I'm an average guy and I just can buy some Bitcoin. Anybody can do that. But for the public companies, for the corporations with access to these capital markets, you can kind of, there's a few tiers. And so not, after they bought the Bitcoin, And Bitcoin will rise and fall. And I think they bought it, and Bitcoin went from like 11,000 to 9,000, right? Which is a big move. And that's a traditional mind would say that's so risky, right? But I think part of being a Bitcoiner is understanding that volatility is your opportunity.
Saylor said you need the volatility. You want volatility.
There's no volatility. Yeah, there would be no playbook. There would be no strategy. And so the second thing they did was they came out with a debt offering, and raised a bunch of money, which again, risky, unconventional. But this is what they did for I think it was 5 or 6 years, and bought more Bitcoin. And so, right, this is traditionally it's called a speculative attack when you borrow one in a weak currency and buy a strong. We'll call it speculative arbitrage, maybe, where you understand the long-term prospects of two currencies. This is what like George Soros did in the I think mid 80s. He broke the Bank of England, right? The pound was artificially strong. Borrowed a bunch of them and sold them for marks, German marks, and dollars. And the pound crashed because the Bank of England was trying to artificially prop it up, right? And so then he bought back the pounds and made some money. But that was a kind of a short-term trade. So Saylor comes out, or MicroStrategy comes out and borrows a bunch of money and buys some Bitcoin, right? And conventionally, this is very, very risky, right? Bitcoin's a super volatile asset. MicroStrategy stock is going up and down and up and down. But you can borrow money, even just at that point when interest rates are zero, even 2, 3, 4, 5% per annum, where Bitcoin is, what's the average compounded at annual return over the next, 3, 4, 5 years, right? It's probably higher than 5%, right? There's risk there, there's uncertainty, there's volatility. But that was very, very much an unconventional new sort of strategy, right? And so I think that the really interesting thing is, you can buy Bitcoin with 5 or 10% of your cash reserves. So I think that's level one for anybody. Level two is, like I said, using these public corporate financing markets where particularly debt, but also equity, right? So if you think of real Bedford, or I think of, any company in the world, really, public markets, private markets, and you say, what's the valuation there? In a public stock market, you just see the amount of stock, you see the price, you multiply them, that's the market cap. Or, a private company, someone might say, real Bedford's worth $10 million. So if you think of that in Bitcoin terms, is real Bedford in Bitcoin terms, whatever that, Bitcoin value is, if you use the Bitcoin as a denominator instead of dollars, is that in 10 years from now, is maybe not real Bedford, but is...
No, it's a good example. I would say, what's that, like 130 Bitcoin-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of real Bedford, your competitor, right? Are they worth more or less Bitcoin in 10 years from now, right? Regardless of the dollar price?
Everything being equal, you're considering as well. Like, imagine we didn't even get promoted.
Yeah. And so, I would say almost every company in the world, except companies that have fully sort of embraced and accept this reality, are overvalued in Bitcoin terms. So if that's and again, that's a maybe a bold assumption for some, right? But even the biggest companies in the world, the most high-flying tech stocks, or the biggest, there's few companies out there over the past 10 years, and I would say even over the current 10 or the next 10, where, you're going to outpace this hurdle rate, this Bitcoin denominated hurdle rate. And so in that scenario, in that reality, one of the things that maybe is wise to do is, raising equity capital and accumulating some Bitcoin. And so if you're a public company, you can just have a shelf filing, you can just issue securities, sell equity, basically sell stock, right? And buy Bitcoin. And so in the public market world, that's like dilution is like a dirty word. It's like, whoa, if you own, 10% of Apple stock and they say, hey, we're gonna, issue more stock. Well, then you only own 9% of the stock, or 8%, and that's dilutive, right? And so the stock you would expect to fall, and that'd be really bad. But what MicroStrategy pioneered, and is really, really interesting, it's like flipped the whole narrative, the whole playbook on its head, the corporate financing playbook of borrowing as much money as you can and buying back your stock to reduce the total amount of stock outstanding, is they've been selling equity and buying Bitcoin. And so, you're theoretically, your owner, or not even theoretically, your ownership of the total shares is decreasing, but the amount of Bitcoin per share and the amount of Bitcoin you are entitled to with your shares is increasing. And so this is like this, again, completely unconventional, right? It goes against all common wisdom and the efficient market hypothesis. But they've raised billions of dollars, not only in debt to buy Bitcoin, but they've sold more stock. As a public company, you can, this is an unofficial technical term, but you can print shares, right, to raise capital. There's two ways to raise capital: equity financing and debt financing. And so they're going out, like when, if someone invests in real Bedford, you say, okay, well, I'm either borrowing money or I'll give you a slice of the business in exchange for some cash, right? And so if you're doing that at a public level, you're diluting your shares, you're printing more shares and buying Bitcoin, right? The amount of stock out there goes up. In theory, your stock price should go down, but your total amount of Bitcoin and your Bitcoin per share goes up. And so there's like almost no one has come out and done this, and 4 years after MicroStrategy has. And like, again, we're kind of getting into the weeds here, but the real crazy thing here is MicroStrategy's market cap has gone up 30 times over. It's $1 billion and a half to $35 billion. And everybody says, whoa, that's way too risky. That's really volatile. That's really risky. And so we haven't even gotten to the more like esoteric sort of stuff, like what he's doing with volatility and how he can borrow money for free. But this is where the real, fun begins.
What's the mechanic of it? If he borrows $500 million to buy Bitcoin, even if it's at a 5% interest rate, 3%, whatever, when do they have to pay the interest annually? Is it added to the debt? What happens to the debt? Because if I wanted to say borrow money to buy Bitcoin as an individual, I've done it before. I've gone to a bank. I have to eventually pay that back, right? I have to pay that. Say I borrowed 100,000. I have to pay that back. Now I have two options: like free cash flow from my businesses, or I sell some of that Bitcoin, and hopefully it's less of the Bitcoin that I bought. So that's the trade, right? What do they do? How do they pay that 500 million back? Where does that debt sit?
Yeah, so most of what they've done one kind of senior secured bond, which is just we're going to borrow money and we're going to pay you back at the end. But most of what they've done is through convertible notes. So convertible notes, this is a bit more financy, but essentially, right? If we'll keep it simple, if a stock's at $100, right? And I say I'm going to borrow $1 billion of convertible bonds. If you know the first kind of little thing, if you ever had like a little stock trading account like Robinhood or whatever kind of brokerage account is, and a lot of people like my age or the millennials like love trading options, GameStop or Tesla or just buying call options, right? And so if the stock's at 100 and there's a $150 call option, meaning that what you're buying the right to purchase a stock that's currently at 100, you're buying the right to buy it for $150, right? So it's 50% above the current price. That call option, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for the right to buy something 50% higher than it is now. And the more volatile that is, the more volatile the stock, right? If the stock is MicroStrategy, that option's can be very, very valuable. But if you're buying an option for Treasury bills or
Boeing,
Berkshire Hathaway, something that's not volatile, that doesn't move, that option has almost no value, right? So the option, particularly the things that make options valuable, are the longer it is, right? Because how valuable is an option that expires tomorrow? Okay, the stock has to go up more than 50% for it to cash. Well, the value is probably zero or close to zero. Well, how valuable is it if the option's 10 years away? The stock could very easily go up 50% 10 years from now, right? Well, what if the stock goes up or down 10% every day, right? The chances that it goes up 50% in 10 years is, basically, almost assuredly going to happen. So that's very, very valuable. So the two of the things that are really important are the maturity and the volatility, right? So this is what Saylor has done. He's bought Bitcoin, not just 10% of his balance sheet. He's bought 50% of his balance sheet, and then 80%. Then he goes out and borrows $1 billion. So now he has debt, and he buys Bitcoin. So now the balance sheet of MicroStrategy isn't just even 100% Bitcoin; it's 110%, 120% Bitcoin, right? So if Bitcoin is trading with 80% annualized volatility, MicroStrategy, the balance sheet's trading at 100% volatility, 120% volatility. It's more volatile than Bitcoin because they've borrowed, they have leverage, right? And so this is the genius, is that a convertible bond is saying we're going to borrow money, but the stock's at $100. But anytime in the next 7 years when we have to pay you back, if the stock goes above $140, we'll pay you back in stock, but the stock we're going to pay you at a conversion price of $140. So if the stock goes to $1,000, I'm going to pay you back in shares in 7 years at the stock price of $140. So that means that if you're a bondholder, you're not getting paid back the $1 billion. You're getting $1 billion of shares at a $140 price. So that $1 billion is now that you're getting like $6 billion worth of stock, right? You're getting a call option in your bond. That's what a convertible bond is, right? So Saylor borrowed money in 2021 for 0%. So 0%, it's called zero coupon, 0% interest convertible bond in 2021. And you know, everyone was like, who the heck would buy that? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen, right? Who would lend in that money, right? It just makes zero sense, especially when inflation's ripping, they're printing trillions of dollars. That bond for 3 years later is up 300% more, give or take, right? Above its starting price, which does not happen in the world of bonds. If you're a bondholder, the main goal is get your money back, get 3, 4, 5, 6, 10% interest a year. That's a win. Like stockholders, equity owners, stock owners want to make a bunch of money. Bondholders just don't want to lose their money. So when a bond goes up 300%, that doesn't happen. So the MicroStrategy zero interest rate bonds were like the best performing bonds in the world from that point through 2024.
Makes you wonder why governments haven't followed the same strategy for their bonds.
Well, you know, essentially that's
during a bond crisis.
Essentially, right? It's you know, Saylor figured out, you know, hey, we can basically give a bond market that's starved of yield, right? Inflation is 9%, or now it's like 3%, but even though it's probably more than 3%, it's probably more than it's actually reported. Money supply is increasing, and these bondholders are getting 4, 5, 6, 7%, right? Okay, that's a okay return, but you know those convertible bonds for a Bitcoin balance sheet is basically taking that Bitcoin exposure, packaging it into debt, packing it into a bond, into a dollar denominated or fiat denominated debt instrument. And so this is the secret sauce, this turbocharged volatility that, you know, adds a bunch of debt, buys a bunch of Bitcoin. Conventional wisdom is like, that's unbelievably risky, unbelievably scary, irresponsible, super volatile. The volatility is what enables, the volatility cranks the option value. That option value gets packaged into the debt and lets him borrow money for free. And then he borrows money for free and has 6, 7 years for that Bitcoin to appreciate more than 0% or 1%. And so this is, and then it's just a feedback loop again and again and again and again. And then he goes to the market, sells equity, buys more Bitcoin, sells equity, buys more Bitcoin. And so this is how a $1 billion software business with no change to its, like they've added a little bit of a Bitcoin unit and whatnot, but it's not like MicroStrategy's actual net income has exploded. It's a balance sheet play, and they've gone from 1 billion to 30 billion. And still, I've had a bunch of conversations the last 2 months. Nobody like in the TradFi world thinks that like truly deeply understands the core, tenets of the playbook. It's just like, yeah, well, that guy got a bit lucky in 22 and kind of escaped it all. Saylor almost got liquidated.
He was down at one point, and now he's not.
I mean, there was billions of dollars of unrealized losses in 2022, right? They didn't sell and they bought more. And so, yeah, if maybe some people would say that you flew too close to the sun, but he would say, well, no, I termed all this debt out 5-6 years. We knew what was coming.
And now he's survived. It's a little bit like even on a personal level. Once you've done your first full cycle,
yeah,
each cycle gets easier.
Yeah,
it gets a lot easier. Is it therefore a lot easier for them now? He can't, unless he does something totally crazy. He really can't float that close to the sun as long as the price doesn't do something it's never done before.
I mean, their average cost basis is like 30,000 per Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The debt they just bought back some of their bonds early, retired some of their bonds early. It was convertible bonds, so they didn't even have to pay it back in dollars. So just as a public company, it just converted into stock, right? And so now, I think he has the next debt he has maturing is like 27. Don't quote me on it, but right, like this is the genius. It's not that your money's due or you have to pay this all back in 3 months or a year or 2. It's like 6-7 years and for Bitcoin to appreciate by more than their latest convertible bond was 2%, right? And it's 2032. So he's borrowing money through 2032 at 2%.
No one else is borrowing money at that rate.
No, and no one else is. Even if they were, they're taking that and they're looking to expand their or they're acquiring a business, and acquisitions have an extremely high failure rate, or they're buying back their stock. Right? Apple goes out and borrows all this money and buys back their stock. And Apple's a conglomerate business, but most companies, there's like for every Apple, there's an IBM or these airlines. All these airlines in COVID that he'd be bailed out. Why? It's not that airlines don't make money. It was that the executives came in over the last 20 years and looted. They looted the balance sheet. They looted the treasury. They essentially, you come in, I get hired as a CFO or CEO, and you have stock options for 3, 4, 5 years. And what's the easiest thing to do? Well, go borrow as much money as you can, buy back your stock. Even if the company's earnings don't grow at all, when you're buying back your stock, earnings per share goes up. Mm-hmm. They cash out, they leave. And, IBM, or I believe IBM has spent more money on buybacks than their current market cap.
A buyback's a scam.
I mean, it's not a scam. No, it's not a scam. I mean, it's a legitimate. Like, if you have a business and that I have $100 worth of assets and the stock is trading at $80, it's a rational thing to go buy back the stock. Right? Maybe it's the best return on your money. But when a corporation is, they're like Apple's basically the latest product Apple has launched in the last 10 years, the biggest innovation or engineering feat they've accomplished is financial engineering. It's borrowing money, buying back the stock, right? Apple's shares outstanding is like this, their earnings are like this. And, Apple's more creditworthy than the US government, from a credit rating standpoint. Yeah. And so, that's the corporate, like not just never mind Bitcoin, that's the corporate playbook, right? As it's written, as you would learn it in a Harvard MBA, right?
The ownership structure within MicroStrategy now, they've gone from $1 billion to a $35 billion market cap company. Has that also led to a massive increase in the number of shareholders? And how does the actual dilution of that Bitcoin kind of work? I mean, it sits on the balance sheet of the company. You can sell your shares, yada, yada. But what's the kind of future expectation here? Do you think that Bitcoin would ever be available to withdraw to individuals? It's a great playbook in terms of the market cap. Mm-hmm. What's the reality of the mechanics of how the ownership structure?
Yeah, so I mean, some people were saying, well, would you pay dividends or, can you do Bitcoin dividends potentially? Well, the thing is, like with a dividend, it's very tax inefficient. And so you pay a dividend, the corporation pays tax, and the person that receives the dividend pays tax, right? When they have a hodl strategy, they're not paying any tax they're just sitting on Bitcoin, right? If you hodl Bitcoin, you're not going to pay tax. In the same way that if you hold a stock, you're not going to pay a tax if it goes up until you realize it. And so the tenet is, I think it's just, it's the same that you or me or anyone at the Bitcoin conference would say, I want to buy as much Bitcoin as I can and, leave it to my kids one day in 20 years. And I'm just going to keep buying more and keep buying more. And if the price is 67,000 or 10,000, I'm just going to keep buying more. But most people, no one actually has ability to borrow money at 0 or 1 or 2 for 7 years. I can't as an individual, I can't sell shares of my equity. That's the point of being a public company. That's the point of being registered with the SEC and having all these, securities registrations and, public audits and accounting and right. Like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of accounting. It's a lot of hassle to be a public business, but it also, comes with many things that you can't do as an individual or a private company.
And this works because, quite simply, we have a scarce form of money called Bitcoin, which has got growing demand for it, versus fiat currency, which is the money supply is continuing to expand. And mathematically, we know it has to expand because of the rise in debt levels. I think, did Dave Smith say at the conference that, or somebody say that interest payments are now 73% of tax receipts or something crazy? Whatever, it doesn't even matter if the number's wrong. There's a growing interest payments, just interest alone. Mm-hmm. And so mathematically, they cannot get away from expanding the money supply. And as long as that will happen and more people become aware of the fact that my escape is this other thing called Bitcoin, and some people gold, of course, and other assets. But this is why it works. We know one is going to continue to increase in the money supply and one can't.
Look at you, 800 episodes in, and you're a master.
But is that it? That's the bet. That's the bet, is that will continue to happen.
I think the bet is twofold. The bet is the USD component, is the money supply will continue to increase. There's no feasible way for that to reverse, or even you might argue that it can't even decelerate. It has to continue to accelerate, and the rate of change of that. But yeah, that's a component, and I think the other component is like a technological thing with Bitcoin, right? It's going through its own adoption cycle. Even if the fiat money supply wasn't rapidly debasing, you would argue that every net new adopter of Bitcoin for a absolutely scarce money would increase base demand, would increase the price, would increase that, I don't even say price, like would increase the exchange rate, right? So there's twofold, and I think even if we weren't in a place where governments were in the worst spot they've been, like fiscally in 100 years or maybe ever on a global fiat standard, that Bitcoin would still be the thing that you would want to own, right? Even if they weren't wildly fiscally irresponsible, there's no way that they could have the absolute enforced insured scarcity of Bitcoin. So it would still be appreciating, right? So yeah, I mean, that's the bet, right? Is that we're still early to this, despite being $1.5 trillion. It was funny, this is an anecdote, but the Daily Wire, which is a big sort of like conservative publication in the video media in the US, they were live streaming some stuff at the conference, and there was like live chats in the Daily Wire feed, and there was like multiple times over, right? And these people are like follow politics and whatnot, and maybe are more or less savvy, depending. And there was a lot of like, what is Bitcoin? What the heck is Bitcoin? So like, again, we're in our echo chamber. And it's probably, honestly, I mean, realistically, these people are like probably pretty old or whatnot, but still, like, it's, we hammer the point home, and we talk to people so many times that are like deeply in the know and obsessed with this thing, and their business or their individual life revolves around it. But to the average person, it's still, even not even to the average person, even to people in like Wall Street, right? It's like the speculative bet thing that's correlated to the NASDAQ, and it's just like, we'll buy it when the Fed cuts or something. It's not like an ultimate solution, right?
But does it therefore not amaze you that more people aren't doing this?
The public strategy?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, so naively, I would have assumed in 2021 that like, 100 companies are doing this, and that was, I guess, just being young and naive, and I mean, I'm still young, obviously, but
I think most people thought that though.
Yeah, we all thought that.
But then the 2022 bear market, and 23 was kind of like still there's like reputational risk, especially after FTX and all of that. Yeah. But the FASB rule change, the accounting, again, the BlackRock stamp of endorsement was like a big kind of line in the sand. People thought MicroStrategy was trading at a premium to its Bitcoin holdings before the ETF announcement. It was like a slight premium. Like they have, 10 billion of Bitcoin, and the market cap's like, or 12 billion of Bitcoin, the market cap's like 15 billion or something. And they're like, well, it should be, closer to, it should be priced exactly at the value of their Bitcoin holdings. And someone said, well, okay, well, after the ETFs, that's it for MicroStrategy,
because MicroStrategy was the ETF.
Yeah, right. And MicroStrategy's premium has, and again, I don't think premium to NAV is because it's a business. It's not like a closed-end trust like Grayscale. But that didn't happen. It also expanded, right? So the value of MicroStrategy's market cap increased faster than the value of its Bitcoin holdings. That widened. And so we were talking to a kind of a big institutional investor a couple of days over, and he was saying like, yeah, I've been, this guy owns a bunch of MicroStrategy, and he was like, yeah, I was talking to a bunch of my peers for the past 3 years about this, and nothing resonated. And the day of the ETF launch, a few of them called me up and said, yeah, we're in. It's obvious now. We get it. So I think like it's slow, and also to expect that a bunch of like hundreds of companies are going to be like, aha, I get it, and go convince their board of directors that not just buying a slice of Bitcoin, but going all in Bitcoin, borrowing money to buy Bitcoin, selling equity to buy Bitcoin, like that's a radical step to take. I think there's going to be a lot of companies that get their foot in the door. There's going to be fewer companies that say, okay, we want a bigger allocation. There's going to be, even smaller amount of companies that say, at least at this point in time, that say, all right, all in corporate Bitcoin standard, leverage long Bitcoin on the treasury, borrow as much money as you can, sell as much equity as we can, and buy more Bitcoin. Like there's going to be, and we're starting to see those trickle in. But that I don't think we're at that point in time where that's like widely adopted.
Yeah, I think there's other reasons as well. I think there'll be people who think, oh, they're still too late to do this. Mm-hmm. Only Michael Saylor could do it. Nobody else. They don't get the absolute scarcity versus the radical increase of the money supply of the dollar. I still don't think that's really clicked for people fully. It's a bit like I was talking about it. I think even with Jameson beforehand, it's like even with your friends, some of your friends who you've talked about Bitcoin at 20,000 and now it's 60,000, they think they're too late. You've just got that too late mentality. Mm-hmm. I think people still dismiss it. They just think it's still a fad after 15 years, despite everything. I think there's a number of reasons why, but I still expected just more. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm naive as well. I'm surprised. But then, we had a look at El Salvador's balance sheets, over 5,000 Bitcoin now. And, it's $350 million worth.
Stacking a Bitcoin a day, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah. Yet still there isn't a second country. It's just, it's funny because you will see in these playbooks in front of you, even Real Bedford, we are, again, I want to repeat, we're an 8th tier football club. Our balance sheet is probably bigger than every other club in our division put together. Yeah. It probably was before the Winklevoss deal. Again, none of them have a Bitcoin strategy. I say though, and this might have happened to you, I've had a couple of clubs reach out to me and say, tell me what you're doing and how you're doing it.
And the genius, and this full well, the genius of Real Bedford or just, this kind of Bitcoin industry, like globally, internationally, if you're a business and say, whatever you are, right, whether it's a public company or a soccer club, and you say, we're the Bitcoin team, or like we will put a logo, or we're going to Bitcoin standard, or you now have an international fan base, and you now have this $1 trillion brand, this open source brand that you are now on the team of.
Well, what was it you said yesterday? Do you remember?
I don't remember. What did I say?
We talk about the timing.
I don't remember what I said. You're gonna have to tell me. Probably. I have been all weekend.
Yeah, you said the genius of it was the speed at which you did it.
Yeah.
So you became
totally. Yeah, you don't want to be the second Bitcoin club. If you're the first one, you have you have such an advantage in that marketing strategy.
You are the Bitcoin club.
Yeah. You're the Bitcoin soccer
and there
team.
will be a Bitcoin NFL team, and there will be a Bitcoin hockey team. And eventually, there'll be, and anyone else who does it afterwards, they're a team with a strategy, but not the team.
Yep. And so, there's a ton of. You have global fans, advertisement, capital. And I think there was a really interesting. This is Bitcoin for corporations in Vegas, and I think late April, early May. And most all this was this was talking about the playbook and MicroStrategy story and whatnot. And Mike Germano, the president of Bitcoin Magazine, had a slot, and his entire thing, and it was very much unconventional. And I had seen a ton. I've seen the number go up, Bitcoin thesis 100 times over. I've come on the show probably 5 times and talked about that, right? The macro situation and the fiscal and all this. And Mike Germano he has again, president of Bitcoin Magazine, has like a 15-year, 20-year history in the advertisement world, right? The media world. He's at Vice and all that. Back when Vice was cool.
When Vice was good.
When
Vice was punk rock, And he had a presentation on the Bitcoin brand. Mm-hmm. And it was essentially like, this is a $1 trillion brand. It is punk rock. It is cool. It is cultural. It's all the finance stuff. It's all the weird nerds, like we're this kind of little cliquey sort of community internationally. There is the computer science, there is the economic, but it's also a social movement. It is also cultural. There's also a brand, right? It's like the biggest brand, one of the biggest brands in the world is Bitcoin. And so if you can, if you're, again, like you said, an eighth tier football club, and you all of a sudden attach yourself to a $1 trillion universally recognized brand, there is nothing else like that.
As Real Bedford, you have no right to be in Nashville selling a ton of merch without Bitcoin. That never happens.
Oh, we sold £8,000 of merch over this weekend, and we're stuffed in the corner of the bazaar.
Congrats.
That's
awesome.
I just went on our Shopify. So on our Shopify alone, we've sold, since we launched, £173,000 of merch. That's about $210,000. But that's just there. That doesn't account for the conferences where we've taken it in Bitcoin direct or cash. We've probably done £250,000 of merch. And again, there will be teams in maybe even League 2 who don't even do that.
No, if you took the league that Real Bedford are in and combined all their merch sales for the history of the entire football league, they wouldn't have done anywhere near that.
Yeah, and that's that level. So we're at step 4. There are how many leagues in step 4? Because it's a pyramid that goes up until it's the national league.
Yep.
And so it's 2 there, 4. It's probably 8 leagues. Our sponsorships, we're getting the same sponsorships that clubs get in the professional leagues because we stream our games, they want exposure because they want to get exposed to the Bitcoiners. That's why we called it cheatcode. I mean, I don't know if you've heard me ramble about that.
Dylan's coming to cheatcode.
Legend, Australia.
Let's go.
Yeah, but you're going to have to come to Bedford in April as well.
Cool. I'm in.
But yeah. So, but not only, there's so many compounded effects. We've sold £250,000 of merch, but we also sell 10% of that's in Bitcoin. We hold it on the Bitcoin balance sheet. I'll get it up and show you the way we do it as well. But for a club like us, what's super interesting here, let me get this up. I think it's this one here. I have this spreadsheet, very simple spreadsheet. It's every time we've taken Bitcoin in. So that's Luxor. They pay for their sponsorship, 22, 23 in Bitcoin. We received 0.7 Bitcoin. Yes, sorry, wrong one. 23, 24. We received 2.1 Bitcoin, which is £50,000. That Bitcoin now is worth £160,000. We are 132% up. I got it in every single bit. But in total, for the Bitcoin we've taken, we're £258,000 up.
Let's go.
That's a huge amount of money.
Huge.
And but you double the price of Bitcoin. We're sitting on there with like a ridiculous treasury. So that the playbook for this is slightly different. We're essentially trying to be the most well-capitalized club at each level because the driver of success is what you can afford to spend on players and management. It's not the only thing. It's a percentage of it. Yeah, we got 5 million, say we've got now. Say next year we might have to dip. Say even if we had to dip 500 grand in that to have an incredible budget because we want to go full-time, professional.
Yep.
You take 10% of that, but the price might have doubled. So we might even have 10 million.
Yep.
And so hopefully, if this is a 20-year strategy to the Premier League, if Bitcoin continues to appreciate over 20 years, I mean, in 20 years' time, what range of price could Bitcoin be?
What did Michael say?
32 million, did he say? 8 to 32?
I think that's I think the average house costs, a few $1 million at that point.
Right.
But
So
still, let's call it a few $1 million.
A few $1 million. Say we've stacked to 100 Bitcoin and it's $5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got 500 million in Bitcoin and we're in the championship trying to get in the Premier League. We might have to spend 30 million to have a go at that.
Yeah.
With 470 spare.
Yeah.
Like that's the play. Because we can't spend 500 million going up, but we can buy Bitcoin now. So, yeah.
Genius.
Well, yeah. Where can it go wrong?
Well, I mean, you just got to stay well capitalized. I think the peak of the cycle will say, like, this is hyper Bitcoinization. Mm-hmm. This is a new paradigm. There's no dips. And then we go down 70%. 70%.
Yeah, but that's,
This time's different.
Yeah, exactly. But
like for us, we've got no debt.
Yeah.
So we're fine.
Yeah.
But if you're doing this with debt, where's the risk? Where does this become each cycle we get something blows up.
Yeah.
We have a year where ICOs blow up and people lose all their money, or we have all the lenders blow up in the last cycle.
Yep.
Is there a chance we get so many people do this playbook that it ends up becoming something that itself can blow up?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Even amidst MicroStrategy's massive success, they borrowed $1 billion in 2021, after the first couple, and bought it like 56K, and it went to 15, right? So like that was a tough purchase to finance with debt, right? So yeah, I think there's a lot of these things like Grayscale, right, where it was like this massive, it was a premium, like hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin were purchased. It was a massive driver of flows and of narrative, and and then it went from a premium to a discount, and it was like the black swan, and then a bunch of stuff blew up, right? So if right now, corporates add Bitcoin to their treasury, and it's like $1 of Bitcoin purchase is more than $1 of market cap they add, even when the Bitcoin hasn't gone up yet, and so like that won't be a thing forever, certainly. But I think it's just the market like showing, even though there's ETFs, the US has probably 100 billion of Bitcoin in public capital markets, all the miners put together, MicroStrategy, Bitcoin ETFs, definitely over 100 or around 100 billion. In other markets, there's not all that there's not all that available. But there's a whole bunch of institutional funds like with mandates that you can't own ETFs. You have to own public companies. So if you have a company that's making like Scientific, they're just a medical manufacturing. They have some software. They make medical devices. Make like $20 million a year. They bought Bitcoin, right? So and Eric Semler was saying like investors didn't care what we did. We had great margins. We were growing year over year. No interest. They bought 800 Bitcoin, and the volumes have 10x'd, and all of a sudden there's interest, and people are talking about them, and there's institutional interest, and so I think that it's that's not going to be, if there's 100 companies doing it, it's not as big of a story, but I still think those 100 companies will stand to will stand to benefit from being early, right? And the earlier you are, the more you stand to gain.
Could it get messy in a way that, say, if too many companies start trying this playbook, it distorts the market price for Bitcoin quite significantly? Say the price just goes bananas because I would argue that MicroStrategy certainly changed the price of Bitcoin with the amount they purchased.
Yeah, I mean, look, like this, I think this is last cycle. It was
almost Ponzi-like. It becomes.
Well, I mean, it's all fair game, right? Bitcoin purchase is Bitcoin purchased, right?
Of course,
and there's trillions, tens of trillions of dollars of debt and equity, and people selling debt or selling equity to buy Bitcoin, I think is a natural progression of things. But there will definitely, again, when it's this time, it's different, and when you're talking with, like, we're having a lot of very great conversations right now with, just the past week, we've talked with, there's a bunch of interest in this public corporate playbook. There's going to be just, naysayers and people that dismiss it until a year from now, or until whatever, the time frame is where like it gets a bit frothy and we have a, 50% or 60% correction. And like, will there be, some naked bodies washed ashore? Yeah.
So some will get their strategy wrong and fuck up and blow up.
I mean, it's just like, it's just about the timing of it. And on the long time frame, it's absolutely the play. But again, that the volatility is your opportunity, but it's also the thing that, you can't fly too close to the sun, right? As we were saying. So
can we talk about Metaplanet?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So how dissimilar is the Metaplanet play to MicroStrategy?
Well, look, flattered that it's in the same conversation. It's 2 orders of magnitude difference in size, right? But essentially, Metaplanet's a Tokyo Stock Exchange listed company. I joined in May. We saw a few things. One is the monetary policy environment in Japan and the debt situation is the worst in the world. So short-term interest rates just turned from negative to positive in Japan. Short-term interest rates are 10 basis points. They were negative. Long-term interest rates are like 1%. In the US, they're 5%. And it's because there's too much debt. The government has way too much debt relative to their productivity, and demographics are very ugly. So they have nothing to do. They're going to have to print a bunch of money. They're going to have to devalue their currency. So people in Japan are pretty upset. They can't travel. The Japanese love to travel. Their currency's gone down 60% in the last 30 years against the dollar. So as much as the dollar's decayed, that people in Japan have, which is again a developed nation. It's not like this is some third world country that's had their currency. It's like this is a technologically advanced first world country that's had their currency just get destroyed, especially the last year. And secondly, they have the Mount Gox kind of history that's weighed over them a bit. But in Japan, we came to realize there's no ETFs in Japan. There's no miners in Japan. MicroStrategy, Coinbase. There's no Bitcoin exposure in the Tokyo market. And Japan has massive financial markets. So the bond market in Japan is the biggest in the world, except the US, and the equity markets are similarly quite massive. And so we realized, there was, this kind of fertile soil in Japan. And so, came out, I was talking with them for a few months and decided that this was the right thing to do. And so we basically went out. I wrote a white paper, published it in English and Japanese, put it on the Tokyo Stock Exchange just disclosure system. So similar to kind of like an SEC filing. Sent it out and basically said, here are the problems. The problems are the yen is structurally very weak, and the weakness will continue. The Bank of Japan is trapped, and more so, it's going to basically harm the citizens of Japan. And we think Bitcoin, not crypto, Bitcoin, and even the white paper, and this is official Tokyo Stock Exchange disclosure. You can, if you go to metaplanet.jp, you can see it. We have it right on the at the top of the main page, our official disclosure. We said proof of work is the distinction, the difficulty adjustment combined with the absolute scarcity makes Bitcoin different than everything else. This is not a crypto play. This is not a digital asset play. This is a Bitcoin play. And our Metaplanet is going to use every tool in the toolkit to acquire more Bitcoin. And so it was a very small company. This company's pivoted from commercial real estate in the past to, they still have a hotel, but cleared out all the debt, came away with a lot of tax losses, clean balance sheet, and a few million in cash. And so they exercised some outstanding warrants, brought in some investors, bought 6-7 million of Bitcoin to start, which again is very small, but announced a strategy. I joined, got to join as director of Bitcoin strategy. So I think that's a unique job title in the public markets, which is fun. And so, we've since, again, we started very small, but, we've borrowed a billion yen. So, another 6-7 million bucks, at 0.5%. That's not a convert, that's straight debt. So, and to buy more Bitcoin. And we've gone out to the market and said, look, we're going to use debt financing. We're going to use equity financing to buy more Bitcoin. And the response that's followed has been tremendous. Basically, I think we've been trending in Japan for the last couple months, have been the most talked. It's like, the top 10 most talked about stocks on Yahoo Finance Japan, which is their kind of Reddit or stock twits is, you'll see some US companies, Toyota, Samsung, Nikkei, their stock index, Metaplanet. And that we're, so far, and I don't know when this will air, but and hyper volatile, we're trading 2.5 times more volatile than MicroStrategy currently. So whipsaws up and down, but we are the best performing stock in Japan. And every Bitcoin person in Japan is very, very excited that we have embarked upon this. So we think this is just the beginning. Again, we've started very small. We don't have all that much Bitcoin yet. It's 250. But we, the goal, the plan is to increase that. And that's, this is all we've stated. So we're gonna use everything we can, and we're really excited about it.
So the straight debt, which isn't convertible, therefore has to be repaid. Mm-hmm. When does it have to be repaid? That's
a 1-year bond. Okay. And so I think the idea here was, and it's against the collateral is against the hotel that they have, which is officially the core business. And that's what I think it's 12 billion yen of tax losses, around 60, 70, $80 million of tax losses is tied to as the core hotel business of the past. But that is, the idea there was to kind of just show the market, especially as we're starting small and we're kind of announcing these Bitcoin purchases. We've announced, 6-7 times that we've bought Bitcoin, the Saylor-esque sort of strategies. This is to kind of show the market, this is our plan. This is not one-off. We're committed to this. And Bitcoin accretion, both in terms of, Bitcoin accumulation in terms of aggregate purchased and Bitcoin per share is our goal. And we amended the articles of incorporation. So we went in, we had a board of directors meeting. We changed the scope of the business officially to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. This is what we've said. And so every shareholder out there, there's no qualms. We've communicated back and forth with the TSE. We said, this is what we're doing. And the response has been great so far. So
okay, but you don't sell off Bitcoin to pay off that bond in a year. You just refinance that bond.
That's the idea. Yeah. And the capital can be raised through equity or through debt. And we've had a lot of, it's mostly retail right now. So to start the strategy, there was, I believe, and this is rough numbers, but I think we had 4,000 to 5,000 shareholders of Metaplanet rather. There's now over 30,000, which again, very small, and mostly retail. But there's a lot of excitement. And so, I think we started around 20-25 million and in market cap, which again, very small. I think as of, a couple of days ago, it was 250 million.
You 10x'd.
Yeah, and again, a small base, but the idea here is that this is just the beginning. And
over what time period is that?
I think 3 months.
Fuck, should have bought Metaplanet stocks.
And so no, look, like we're disclosing everything ahead of time. Before I think we had 90 Bitcoin purchased when I joined. We published this white paper and said, look, this is what the outline is. Recently, actually, we just announced Bitcoin Magazine Japan. Metaplanet acquired that license, or it's a.
What is that license? What does that actually mean? What are they going to do?
Well, essentially, so I went to Tokyo, and there was a Bitcoin maximalist sort of meetup hosted by Wiz of mempool.space. And there was about 20 people in the room, and it was jokingly, Wiz goes, "Welcome, these are all the Bitcoin maximalists in Tokyo." And so, it was kind of a funny joke, but I think what we recognized then is that Japan is obviously, I wouldn't say dire straits, but the currency is a big, big problem. Bitcoin, the monetary policy and economic environment is similar to where we were in 2020, where interest rates are 0, long-term interest rates are 1. It's like very similar to where they are, or where we were in 2020. But Bitcoin maximalism I don't want to say as an ideology, but as an idea there is still very, very, it's very like nascent. It's very early. And I mean, they had Mt. Gox and whatnot, but crypto pluralism, digital asset, Web3 investing is like kind of that's the popular thing in Japan. So for us,
they don't understand the unique properties of Bitcoin.
I don't want to discredit anyone in Japan, and again, I don't speak Japanese, so a lot of what I'm looking at translated, tweets and translated articles and whatnot. But on the ground, I think the idea for us is that we really want, and with Bitcoin Magazine Japan, the idea is there's a 10-year content archive of Bitcoin Magazine. There's obviously the current stuff, conferences, the Bitcoin Magazine Pro, the analytics, and all that. We want to come in and basically like
build the movement.
Yeah, set a narrative. And so, we're going to build a small team of competent bilingual Bitcoiners over there. Going to start small, but the idea is everything Bitcoin aligned is what we want to do. And so we're a lean team. I mean, it's a very small, there's 10 to 15 people at the company. Like 6-7 of them work at the hotel as part-time. And there's just basically 7 of us on the core team that are working on this. But the response has been amazing. I think, it's, again, we're the, like, in terms of the, on the financial perspective, there's no other Bitcoin, like we're, for better or worse, it's the Bitcoin company is what we're known for at the moment. And so I think we're in a unique position, and I wouldn't have expected this 6 months ago. But super excited about what the next, few years holds.
Yeah. And it's a playbook that could get rolled out all over the place. You've just got to find the right vehicle, the right company. Yeah.
And like, I think it's like Metaplanet, the hotel, spits out $1 million or $2 million a year. It's not a massive conglomerate, cash flowing business currently. But there's a lot of things financially that we can do with raising capital, but also with Bitcoin's native volatility. So I think, you can look at, options, right? So Bitcoin's $66,000 or $67,000. If I said to you, I'll give you the right, I'll sell the right to buy Bitcoin at 67K in December, right?
I'm taking it.
Well, you could take that, but I get 7% for just saying I'll buy Bitcoin at 67K by December. If it goes above that, I'm not going to buy it. If it goes below that, I have to still buy at 67K. And so I can get paid to do that. And by just sitting on some cash, I'm gonna buy Bitcoin at 67K. If it goes under it, I have to buy at 67. If it goes above it, I'm sitting in the cash. But you get 7% to do that because Bitcoin's so volatile and uncertain. So there's a lot of things that we can do with not to say with our Bitcoin. The core tenet of the strategy is to hodl. But in terms of income strategies and whatnot, Simon Yarovich is the ex-Goldman derivatives guy. He's brilliant. Him and I are working together, and also we're talking with a bunch of people in Japan basically the Bitcoin companies and internationally to kind of establish a presence. And so I think because we're so lean, we can do a lot of cool things. Like we just announced proof of reserves with Hoseki.
Yep.
So, Bitwise as an ETF, there's 6 or 7 ETFs. Bitwise came out and said, hey, here's proof of reserves. We say we have X amount of Bitcoin. Here's our Bitcoin. We said, hey, we have 245.99 Bitcoin. Hoseki says, we have zero, there's zero reason for us to lie. We're a public company. There's liability there. We disclose what we have. But also Bitcoins don't trust verify. So we can't just go out and publish our addresses, but we can work with Hoseki and say, hey, we have the Bitcoin we say we have. And so I think stuff like that is just cool because I think we're lean. I've obviously been very much like entrenched in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so stuff like that, I think we can be a leader in. And just in terms of like setting a standard, if you will. So whether it's proof of reserves or just stuff with a Bitcoin native financial strategy or, the corporate playbook in general, kind of showing what's able to be done. I have a ton of ideas. And so I think we're going to be rolling out some cool stuff in the coming months.
Amazing. You got anything else you want to ask?
No, we're good.
It's very cool, man. It's just cool to see you do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, and like, I think basically every conversation I had this week was on the public company strategy and like some big names actually, being like, hey, we've seen this, but we might have to talk. This is pretty cool. And so, look, I understand. I mean, MicroStrategy is $30 billion. Semler Scientific is an established medical manufacturing company. Metaplanet is very much a different strategy, and it's unique, and it's kind of being this isolated sort of play in a big market that has zero Bitcoin out there. I don't think it's as effective if you go to every other random country with small capital markets and not a bunch of native Bitcoiners that are frothing at the mouth for exposure. But like for instance, I think two of the things that I didn't cover actually that I think are key for us too. Just one last thing is in Japan, the crypto Bitcoin is taxed at 55%, up to 55%. It's ordinary income. So Japan taxes are high. If you're a rich Bitcoiner and you sell any Bitcoin, 55% goes to the Japanese government. But for listed securities, it's only 20%. So if you buy or sell listed securities, it's flat tax 20%. So for us, like these were the few things before joining where it was like, okay, I understand. There's nothing comparable to sovereign self-custody Bitcoin. Nothing. And we make that clear. We've came out. We said as such in the white paper. But if we're entering a world where I think every public company is going to buy Bitcoin, and no one. I mean, there's I think a couple companies in Japan have done it, but the relative size of their Bitcoin exposure is very small. And if we can come out and do this in a bold way, say what we're going to do ahead of time, and then execute on it, and it also gives millions of people in Japanese the ability to have some Bitcoin exposure in a tax efficient way where they couldn't otherwise, then we're going to jump on the opportunity. So it's exciting. This week's been really fun. A lot of cool conversation, and I think in general people are really excited just about where we are and where we're going. It's an exciting time to be in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just I think back to San Francisco Bitcoin, the conference in San Francisco. It was a brilliant event, but it was small. It was a couple of thousand people.
Yeah,
had such a great time.
That was the local top, right? I wasn't there, but
I'm trying to remember. I think
13,000, 14,000 Bitcoin.
No, I think we had a boost during it because I think we'd been lower.
Legendary conference from what I hear. A lot of
it was amazing.
Early stuff happened.
I emceed the whole thing all 2 days.
Yeah,
it killed me, but it was brilliant. It was just it was just fun. It's kind of what we were trying to do in Bedford with ours. Just like because it's small.
You didn't MC this year because of the booth.
I
just don't want to.
I just don't think. I think there are. I think I used to MC because I was a known name with the podcast. I think there's actual proper MCs now, like
nice.
who Walker and Carla are brilliant.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I mean, they're professional. I'm not. I'm just a name who stood up and introduced people.
Yeah.
And said, "Yeah, Bitcoin." I don't think I was ever very good at it. And
love it.
And as time came on, the professionals came in and did it. And like Joe Nakamoto did ours.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
At cheatcode.
Yeah, he did it, and he did it as a professional. He plans the whole day. He doesn't just introduce people on stage.
Nice.
And that's great. But, my feeling about that event was like a lot of the spirit is about what might be, what Bitcoin could be. And I feel like we're much more in a place of like what it is, like actual things happening. Like, again, Trump there.
What Bitcoin did, unburdened by what Bitcoin could be.
Yeah, but it's like you've got what you're doing. You've got what Michael Saylor's done. You've got Trump there. You've got people like Dave Smith coming along now. You've got a football team. You've got it's not what it's things are actually happening. It's just a different world. I find it very exciting. I'm thrilled by it. I'm thrilled I'm thrilled to see people like you've got to know Bitcoin like yourself just crushing it.
Yeah.
Like all my friends are winning and I love it.
Yeah. I think, it's just a start.
Yeah.
And, we're kind of hovering around 65K and it feels like, you're saying like, well, I think we don't have a really good understanding of how crazy this could get.
I need 100K this year. I've got a bet with Mike Green.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And he's like, haha, like I can go hedge it in the options market. And you're like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
like,
whatever.
All right, nerd.
Yeah. Fuck off, nerd.
Yeah.
But no, I'll be excited to see where we are in 4 years. Probably we'll probably be on the moon.
Yeah.
Fucking in space at the space station.
Where realistically could real Bedford be in 4 years?
Really, so promotion was just done. We've got a chance this year, but it gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
There's a.
Did you lose you win like every game? You lost a couple.
No, we lost a couple. I mean, our win rate on the men's is 81%, and the ladies I think is 82%. So that's very high.
Crazy.
It's very high, but it gets harder and harder because like this year we're coming up against proper teams like Berkhamsted. Yeah, they get big crowds of 1,000 regularly. They've historical club, and we're the little rogue Bitcoin team. But we're going to give it a go. But also, you have to change a lot of your players when you go up. I mean, our women's side is almost an entirely new squad because it's such a big jump. Takes some time to bed in. I'd like to think we could do each promotion in 2 years.
Are you doing any of the managing, or like?
Very clear separation of responsibilities. I'm
Nice.
off the pitch. Management's on the pitch. I don't interfere. Here's your budget.
Yeah.
Go win me the league. But I would say it'd be fair to say I would like to think of promotion every 2 years. Yeah, if we've got the budget to compete, a promotion every 2 years is
And
fair.
to promote, you just have to win the league.
Win or come second to fifth, you're in a playoff, but that's a bit of a lottery. But let's say, so we're in step 4, which is the 4th tier of non-league.
Okay.
So the 8th tier entire.
Nice.
So if we got 2 more promotions, we'd get up to step 2. So that's 2 promotions from the professional leagues, the 6th tier. I mean, that's proper serious football. You've got teams there who get it. I mean, you've got old big clubs that, go on about, Scunthorpe, they're National North now. National League is where Wrexham were bought, which is the one below the professional leagues, the 5th tier. Every club in that's a big club. National North and South, pretty much everyone's full-time, or at least hybrid full-time. But if we can be if you offer me National South in 2 years, in 4 years, I'd snap your arm off. Because that's proper football. And you also know your 2 promotions from the professional leagues, and which is super serious. And then also it's very easy then to go back to your investors or potential investors and say, look, we're here. This is the next jump. But if we were there, I'd be very happy. My women's side, I mean, they're already in the 4th tier. In the entire,
Well, it's the seasons. Forgive me.
Men's kicks off on next Saturday. On Saturday, actually, 3rd of August. FA Cup game first. I don't know if you know about the FA Cup. It's an amazing competition. So across the entire tiers, from the Premier League down to below where we are, every team in the country can enter. But you enter at different stages. So you have these preliminary rounds, then qualifying rounds, then you have the first round proper. And so the 4 professional leagues, the lower 2 join in the first round proper. Championship and Premier League are in the third round. Yeah. And so what happens is, you always get, when you get to the 3rd round, you have the draw, there will always be 1 or 2 non-league sides who've somehow got there. And they're hoping to get a Premier League team. And you get these unbelievable ties. It was about 4 years ago, this team called Marin, who are in the tier we're going into now, they got to the 3rd round and they drew Tottenham. They lost 5-0, but you're on TV.
Yeah.
You can choose to flip the game to be played at the other team stadium. And the FA Cup rule is that it doesn't matter which fans go, you have to split the gate money half and half. So if they didn't, they
it's
played
huge
it
for like a team that gets draws against Tottenham.
Yeah, but they chose to play at home. They could have gone to Tottenham and got half of the gate money, which would have been hundreds of thousands. They said, no, Tottenham are coming to us. So it's funny. You got this crappy little ground and there's like kids climbing the fences and there's like houses behind. It's an amazing competition, but we've got we've got that kicking off on Saturday, and then the league kicks off the following Saturday.
I have to come for a game.
Honestly, I don't think. I mean, Jameson's been. Yeah. By the way, Jameson's here in the background. Nobody's been had a bad time.
Nice.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll drag you in April. But yeah, I mean, whenever. If you come to London, let me know. We'll get a car. We'll pick you up. Come for a game.
Sweet.
Come Saturday if you want.
Take you up on it.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So yeah, hopefully 4 years' time, if we're 2 promotions high, I'd love it. Best scenario, we give 4 promotions, we'll be in the Football League. We'll be in the professional divisions. So we will see. Anyway.
Speak it into existence.
Yeah, man. Dylan, love what you're doing. Really, really chuffed for you. It's been really cool to see. Congratulations, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Honored to be on.
Thanks for listening,
Last
everybody.
what Bitcoin did with Dylan LeClair.
Last what Bitcoin did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not last podcast. All right.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening.